This happened last month. I was trying to find myself after leaving my husband. I thought visiting the abandoned house would help me clear my mind. The neighborhood was filled with old houses, most of them charming. But at the end of the narrow lane, there was one house that stood out. It was falling apart. The paint was peeling, and the garden was overgrown with weeds. No one had lived there for years. I felt drawn to it. On my first evening, as the sun set, I saw a flickering light coming from one of the windows. I stood there for a moment, not sure what to do. Part of me wanted to investigate, and another part of me thought it was a bad idea. I turned to walk away, but kept glancing back. The light danced like it wanted my attention. Over the next few weeks, I returned often. The light kept flickering at dusk. Sometimes I thought I heard soft conversations drifting from inside. Shadows slipped past the windows. I wrote everything down in my journal. I felt uneasy, but also curious. My friends thought I was crazy for being drawn to the place. I wasn't sure if I should tell them about the light or the whispers. I could hear my own uncertainty in my writing. One night, I made up my mind. I needed to confront whatever was happening in that house. I walked toward it, heart pounding in my chest. The air felt heavy and thick. I could hear my own footsteps crunching on the gravel. It was dark, and the only light was that flicker in the window. Just as I reached the porch, the wind picked up. It felt cold and unnatural. I stopped and took a deep breath. I moved closer, feeling the wood of the railing under my palm. I heard whispering again. It sounded like a man's voice, low and smooth. I couldn't make out the words, but it sent chills down my spine. The light flickered again. I peered through a broken window, my heart racing. The room was empty, but I could feel something was off. Suddenly, I felt as if someone was behind me. I turned, and my breath caught in my throat. There was no one there. I kept looking around as if expecting someone to jump out at me. The silence felt heavy. Then a voice whispered, "Why did you leave him?" I turned around again, and nobody was there. My heart dropped. The words echoed in my mind, and I ran the rest of the way home. My skin prickled, and the night felt darker, scarier. I still don't know what happened. Was it all in my head? Did I really hear that voice? Or was something in that house watching me the whole time? I don't understand any of it. What was real? What wasn't? The abandoned house looms in my mind, and I can't shake this feeling of dread. Who or what was waiting for me behind those walls? The next day, I woke up feeling drained. I barely slept, and every shadow in my room felt like it was watching me. My mind raced back to that voice. Who was it? Why did it ask me about my husband? I picked up my journal, but the words felt empty. I couldn't write about the fear that consumed me. Instead, I grabbed a cup of coffee and stepped outside. The morning light was bright, but it didn't lift the weight on my chest. I needed answers. I decided to visit the library. Maybe I could find something about the house or its history. It was a distraction, at least. The library smelled of old books and dust, a comfort amid the chaos in my mind. I spent hours flipping through local records and newspapers. I discovered that the house had been owned by a man named Edgar Blackwood. He had lived there alone, and decades ago he mysteriously vanished. Some said he was a recluse, but the articles hinted at darker secrets. There were whispers of strange events surrounding his disappearance. Disquieting stories of flickering lights and voices that echoed through the neighborhood after dark. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. Could it be connected to what I experienced? I couldn't shake the rising anxiety. As I left the library, I had a sudden urge to return to the house. That evening, I found myself standing in front of it again. The battered door creaked as I pushed it open, its sound echoing like a warning. The air was different this time, charged. I hesitated at the threshold, but I remembered the stories. Perhaps the only way to find peace was to confront whatever lingered within. Once inside, the silence wrapped around me. I felt my heart thumping in my ears. I took cautious steps forward, glancing at the furniture covered in dust. A layer of neglect thickened the atmosphere. I made my way to the room where I had seen the light. It was dark, but the flicker returned, illuminating a single corner. I reached for my phone, using its light to guide me. That's when I saw it, a small wooden box in the corner, almost hidden by shadows. Curiosity tugged at me as I knelt to examine it. As I brushed off the dust, a cold breeze rushed past me, chilling my skin. I froze. The whispers began again, a chorus of low murmurs that echoed off the walls. "Find the truth," one voice urged, indistinct yet full of urgency. My heart raced, and I felt the room closing in on me. The box lay before me, and I knew I had to open it. What secrets did it hold? I pulled the latch and lifted the lid, my breath caught in my throat. Inside was a collection of old letters, tied together with a fraying ribbon. As I reached for them, everything around me darkened. The air thickened, heavy.
I looked around as shadows danced on the walls. Then a voice rang out, not a whisper, but a clear, booming echo. "You shouldn't have come here." I stumbled back, dropping the box as fear gripped me. The letters scattered like leaves upon the floor, but my focus was on the darkening hallway ahead. Something was indeed waiting for me, and I wasn't alone anymore. I scrambled to my feet, panic surging through me. The voice reverberated in my mind, drowning out the whispers that filled the room. I felt as if the walls were closing in, shadows moving like tendrils reaching for my very soul. I turned, quickly making my way back toward the door, my heart racing as I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone, or something, behind me. The letters lay scattered across the floor, each one glimmering in the dim light. My instinct screamed at me to leave, but a part of me was drawn to the letters. They felt important, connected to the voice, to the history of Edgar Blackwood. I hesitated, weighing my options as I stood by the doorway, trembling. What if the letters held answers I desperately needed? I couldn't ignore the urge to understand. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, then knelt down to gather them. My fingers brushed against the paper, and I felt a jolt of energy surge through me, like static electricity. I flipped one letter open, its age curling the edges. The handwriting was elegant but shaky, a sign of distress. The words spilled onto the page like a confession. Edgar was terrified, speaking of shadows that moved at night and whispers that echoed his name. "They want me to leave," he wrote. "They come for me in the dark. I fear I cannot stay." As I read, the temperature around me dropped. I could see my breath misting in front of me. My fear intensified, but I forced myself to keep reading. The letters detailed his growing obsession with a figure, an odd presence that had appeared after he found a strange artifact buried in the backyard. The letters hinted that the figure was not just a ghost, but something more sinister, drawing him into its web. I looked behind me. The hallway remained dark, but I could feel the weight of something watching me, waiting. I grabbed a few more letters, my hands shaking as I folded them into a pile. Suddenly, a loud thump echoed from the opposite end of the house, followed by a scraping noise, sending chills down my spine. I dropped the rest of the letters and bolted toward the door. My mind raced. I needed to get out, get home. The weight of the dark shadows pressed in on me as I sprinted for the exit. I flung open the door and stumbled onto the porch, gasping for air. Just as I thought I was safe, I heard it again, that booming voice. You must.
No, you cannot leave. My blood ran cold. I turned slowly, the night air swirling around me. In the distance, I saw a figure standing at the edge of the trees, its outline barely visible. The very shape of it sent a jolt of terror through every nerve in my body. It held out a hand, beckoning me to come closer. I realized then that whatever I had encountered was far from done with me. I turned and ran, my heart pounding in my chest as I sprinted down the path, desperate to escape its grasp. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't over. Answers were not only waiting at the house, they were chasing me too. And as I glanced back one last time, the figure remained, its face hidden, but its presence looming like a storm cloud. I sprinted down the path, my feet pounding against the hard ground. My breathing was rapid, each inhale filling my lungs with the cold night air. I glanced back once, and the figure was still there, watching, waiting. Panic clawed at my throat. I needed to make it to my car. The gravel crunched beneath my shoes, echoing into the still night. It felt like a countdown, each step I took giving the figure more time to close the distance. My mind raced as I imagined what it wanted, trying to force myself to think rationally amid the terror. Just as I reached the driveway, I heard the sound of footsteps behind me, heavy and relentless. A jolt of adrenaline shot through me. I needed to get behind the safety of metal and glass. I raced to my car, fumbling with my keys as I reached the door. My fingers were slick with sweat, and every second felt like an eternity. Finally, I managed to unlock the car, flinging the door open and sliding inside. I slammed it shut and quickly locked the doors. I caught my breath, glancing around. The figure was still there, standing just beyond the reach of my headlights. A chill prickled my skin as I stared at its silhouette. I started the engine, its rumble filling the silence. As I shifted into reverse, something caught my eye. A glint of metal on the ground. I hesitated before stepping out again. What if it was connected to Edgar? What if it revealed more about that strange presence? I rationalized my decision in a heartbeat. I needed answers, even if it might bring me closer to danger. I took a deep breath and stepped back outside, trying to ignore the shivers running up my spine. The figure remained still, as if waiting for something. I walked cautiously towards the glimmer, my heart racing. It was a small silver key, unlike anything I had ever seen before. Ornate designs spiraled around it, giving it an otherworldly air. I picked it up, and as soon as the cool metal touched my palm, a rush of strange thoughts flooded my mind. A vision of a door, a hidden space, lost secrets that needed to be uncovered. A loud rustling in the trees snapped my focus back to reality. The figure was moving. I could see it more clearly now, its head tilting, as if it was studying me. I felt its gaze piercing through me. Panic surged back, and I turned to run for my car, but I wasn't quick enough. A low voice broke through the quiet night. You cannot unlock what you do not understand. Fear twisted in my stomach as I slid into the driver's seat, slamming the door. I thought about what Edgar had written about that figure, the power it held. I gripped the key tightly, uncertainty flooding my mind. This was not just a shape in the dark. This presence wanted something from me, and I was tied to it now. I slammed my foot on the gas, the tire screeching as I tore away down the road. I stole one last glance in the rearview mirror. The figure stood at the edge of the trees, still and ominous. This was far from over. I knew that now. As I drove, my thoughts raced. I had a key, but what was it for? And who or what was that figure? I realized I had no choice but to find out. The morning light poured in through my window, but it did nothing to calm the storm inside me. I tossed and turned, the key still resting on my bedside table, a cruel reminder of the night before. My pulse quickened every time I closed my eyes, replaying the encounter over and over. The figure's voice echoed in my mind. You cannot unlock what you do not understand. I felt a knot in my stomach. Was I in over my head? After a restless night, I got up, determined to find out more about the key. I needed answers. I took a shower, splashing cold water on my face, trying to shake off the remaining dread. I glanced at my reflection. My eyes were bloodshot and my skin was pale. I looked like I hadn't slept in days. I headed to the local library, the only place I thought might hold some answers about the key or the figure. The musty smell of old books engulfed me as I stepped inside. I searched the stacks, pulling out books on local lore and history. Desperate for information, I flipped through pages, mind racing with possibilities. Then, in an old, dusty tome, I found something. A chapter about an abandoned house at the edge of town caught my eye. The story spoke of strange happenings and mysterious disappearances over the years. But one detail stood out. The house had once belonged to an eccentric inventor known for creating odd contraptions and rumored to hold secret passages. My heart raced. Was this where the key fit in? I hurriedly jotted down the address, the ink smudging from my shaky hand. But just as I was
About to head out, a shadow fell across the table. I looked up, and my breath hitched. The librarian, an elderly woman with a piercing gaze, was staring right at me. "I see you found the old book," she said, her voice low and gravelly. "Not many venture into that section anymore. What interest do you have in that house?" I hesitated, feeling exposed. I need to know what happened there." Her eyes narrowed, as if she were weighing my intentions. "Some doors should stay locked. You can't just walk in there. It's not what it seems." A chill ran through me. Was she confirming my worst fears? I pushed aside the unease creeping up my spine. "But I have this key." I showed her the small silver object emblazoned with intricate designs. Her expression shifted, a mix of apprehension and surprise. "That key, it belongs to the house. You must tread carefully. The figure you saw, many have encountered it over the years. It doesn't take kindly to intruders." I felt a wave of anger and confusion. "What do you mean? What does it want?" She shook her head and lowered her voice. "It wants to keep its secrets. Take heed, dear. If you unlock what you do not understand, it may unlock something in you." "What does that even mean?" I asked, frustration boiling. But she simply turned and walked away, leaving me in a cloud of unanswered questions. As I left the library, the weight of her words settled over me. I now felt more determined than ever to confront whatever mystery lingered at that house. But fear gnawed at me too. What if I brought something back with me? I pulled out my phone, typing the address into the GPS as it whirred to life. I was nearly there when a series of rapid knocks rattled against my window, causing me to jump. I turned, my heart racing. It was a man in a dark coat, his eyes wide and frantic. "You need to leave. That house, it's not safe." His warning sent a jolt through me. I realized then that my discovery might have awakened something far more dangerous than I had imagined, and I was running out of time. I slammed my foot on the gas, driving away from the man's urgent warning, but his fearful eyes stayed with me. I had to know what lay ahead. The house was only a few blocks away, looming like a dark shadow at the edge of town. As I approached, the air grew thick with tension. The trees outside the property swayed wildly, as if trying to warn me away. I parked and sat for a moment, staring at the dilapidated structure. It was more crumbling than I had imagined, with boarded-up windows and vines creeping up the sides like grasping fingers. My heart raced. I reached for the key again, its metal cool against my fingers. I could turn back.
walk away, and pretend I never found it. But the urge to discover what lay beyond those walls overpowered my fear. I stepped out and walked toward the front door, the ground crunching under my feet. Each step echoed in my mind, reminding me of the librarian's warning. I hesitated, my hand hovering above the keyhole for a second too long. Then I took a deep breath and inserted the key. It turned with a satisfying click. The door creaked open, revealing a dark hallway shrouded in dust and shadows. I peered inside. A wave of dread washed over me, but I stepped in, driven by curiosity. The air smelled stale, heavy. I fumbled for my phone and turned on the flashlight, illuminating the room ahead. Old furniture, draped in sheets, loomed like silent ghosts. Carefully, I made my way through the entrance, my flashlight beam dancing across walls lined with faded photographs. Each picture seemed to hold a memory, a life once vibrant. But something felt off about their smiles, almost unnatural. Then I noticed it. A door at the end of the hall, slightly ajar. It called to me like a whisper in the dark. I approached cautiously, gripping my phone tightly. Just as I reached for the handle, a rustling sound echoed from behind me. I spun around, heart pounding. The house felt alive, breathing with a presence I couldn't see. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. No answer, just silence pressing down on me like a weight. Forcefully, I pushed the door open. The room was empty, save for a worn table at the center. Stacks of papers lay scattered across it, some tattered and yellowed with age. I leaned forward, trying to make sense of the scrawled notes. They spoke of experiments, theories of unlocking the unknown, and a warning. The one who unlocks must be prepared for the truth. Suddenly, a cold draft swept through the room, the door slamming shut behind me. Panic surged through me. I rushed to the door, only to find it firmly locked. My heart raced. "No! Let me out!" I yelled, banging on the surface. That's when I saw it. A figure standing in the doorway, cloaked in shadows. I couldn't see its face, but darkness seeped from it like fog. I recoiled. "What do you seek?" it asked, voice low and haunting. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I could only stare into the void. I came for answers," I stammered, desperation threading my words. It stepped closer, and a chill gripped my spine. Some answers come at a cost. The air grew heavier, thick with dread. I pressed against the door, heart hammering. What price was I willing to pay? And why did I feel like my answer laid in the very depths of that darkness? And then it spoke again. "You have opened the door. Now you will see." My breath caught. What did that mean? In that moment, as my world descended into chaos, I was deep. In a game I couldn't control, but one that had just begun. The figure loomed closer, its presence darkening the room further. I felt the walls close in, tension snaking around me like a vice. What did it want? I opened my mouth, but no words came. "The truth is a mirror," it said, its voice curling around my thoughts. "It reflects not what you seek, but what you fear." I blinked, desperately trying to shake off the fear that threatened to consume me. "What do you mean? I just wanted to know about the house, about the past." A low, chilling laugh reverberated through the air. "What is the past but a series of choices? And choices," it said, inching closer, "have consequences." I turned in a panic, searching for an escape. The closed door was an unyielding barrier, and behind me the darkness seemed to shift, whispering of things unseen. "I didn't mean to intrude, just let me go." "Every secret has a keeper," it murmured, its form dissipating slightly, revealing faint outlines of an ancient symbol etched into its robe. You are now tied to this place, just as I am. I felt a chill run through my veins as realization hit me. I was not just a visitor. I was part of whatever curse burdened this house. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my voice echoing against the walls. "Open your eyes," it beckoned, its voice rising like a crescendo. "You will see the truth. You will face the choices." Before I could respond, the air shimmered, distorting reality around me. Images rushed past my vision, flashes of laughter, of arguments, of sorrow. A woman, her face oddly familiar, stood in a swirling void, and I recognized her as the last resident of this place, standing on the brink of a decision. "Marissa," I whispered, drawn to her as if she were calling to me. But each time I reached out, she vanished, replaced by moments of shadowy figures arguing, a child crying, a door slamming shut. The chaos spun around me, and I felt dizzy. "Stop, please." "Face what you've avoided," the figure urged, its voice omnipresent now. "This is your journey, your reckoning." In an instant, the room flipped, and before me appeared a vision of my own life, a decision I'd faced not long ago. The choice between pursuing the truth or forgetting it entirely. "What are you trying to show me?" I gasped, feeling the weight of every moment pressing upon me. Suddenly, the door began to rattle behind me. I spun around, heart racing again. "Let me out! I don't want this!" But the door only strained against its frame, refusing to budge. Then I felt a new presence, something pulling me deeper into this mess of memories and ties. I staggered backward, desperation clawing at me. "I can't do this," I shouted, wrenching away from the uneasy stirrings of fate. And then, with a hard effort, I slammed my palms against the wall beside me. It felt oddly warm, almost alive. The images intensified, swirling into a vortex, pulling me toward the heart of their meaning, or their nightmare. "What if I refuse?" I asked the figure, but my voice trembled. "Then you will remain, lost among the choices, forever trapped in a truth you fear to embrace." The words echoed, freezing me in place. It was more than just the spectral warning. This figure knew my soul in ways I had yet to comprehend. I had to make a choice, and soon. Then, just as quickly as it had begun, everything went dark. My senses returned, one by one, like the slow awakening from a nightmare. I blinked into darkness, my heart pounding. Where was I? My hands brushed against a cold, hard surface. I realized I was on the floor, and drew in a shaky breath. "Hello?" I called out, my voice seeming tiny in the vast emptiness. There was no response, just a thick silence wrapping around me like a shroud. I pushed myself up to sit, searching for any sign of the figure that had just confronted me. It was gone, leaving only the lingering chill of its presence. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. The darkness was absolute, but I could feel the walls of the room around me, the weight of history pressing in. I recalled the whispering memories, the urgency to confront what I had avoided. I had to understand why I was here. With newfound resolve, I stood cautiously and reached out, feeling my way along the wall. Everything felt damp, almost alive. I pressed onward, my heartbeat echoing in the stillness. Suddenly, a sliver of light appeared ahead. I quickened my pace, curious and scared. As I neared, I realized it was a door. I grasped the handle, hope spilling into my chest. Yet, as I opened it, the faint light revealed an unexpected sight. A mirror, old and ornate, standing in the middle of an unlit room. I hesitated, recalling the figure's words about truth and choices. Did I dare look? What horrors awaited me? But I had come too far to back down now. I walked closer, heart racing again, and faced my reflection. At first, it was just my face staring back, but slowly the glass began to ripple. Images emerged, fragments of moments I had tried to forget. Arguments with friends, the night I walked away from my family, the decision to investigate this house. The pain of choices long buried gazed back at me with a haunting familiarity. "What do you want?" I whispered, feeling more exposed than ever. The reflection twisted. Suddenly, I saw Marissa, the woman from before, looking directly into my eyes. Her expression was both pleading and regretful. "Help me," she mouthed silently. My breath caught, a wave of emotion crashing over me. I had thought she'd left everything behind, but now I saw that she was lost, tethered to this place just as I was. Before I could react, the mirror shattered, scattering pieces across the floor like forgotten dreams. With a gasp, I jumped back, trying to shield myself from the sharp edges that seemed to pulse with energy. Each shard reflected the truth I had avoided seeing. Then, from the chaos of glass, a figure began to materialize. A shadowy woman, identical to Marissa. She beckoned me, her voice swirling around me like smoke. "You must choose a path, just as I did. But be warned, not all paths lead to freedom." I stumbled back against the wall, panic rising within me. "What paths? What do I have to lose?" "Everything," she replied softly, her image flickering like a candle in the wind. "Choose wisely." I felt a rush of urgency. This was not just about Marissa or the house. It was about my own choices too. I could feel the weight of the curse that tied me here. In that moment, a choked voice cut through my thoughts. "You have to choose now. You cannot stay in the shadows." I turned, suddenly aware. Someone was in the house. My heart raced as I turned to face the source of the voice. In the dim light spilling from the mirror shards, I saw a shape move. A figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the faint glow. Fear surged through me again, but I pushed it down. I needed answers. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice stronger than I felt. The figure took a step forward, and my heart dropped. It was familiar, but distorted, in a way that made my skin crawl. "Do you really want to know?" the figure asked, voice laced with a mocking tone. I squinted, trying to make out details, but it was like looking through fog. "Where's Marissa?" I asked, desperation clawing at my throat. "Lost," the figure replied, and it raised a hand that wasn't quite right, fingers long and twisted. "She chose, and now it's your turn." The warning echoed as I stared into the abyss where her face should have been. I glanced back at the shattered mirror, the shards reflecting 1,000 versions of myself. Each one seemed to stare back with a mix of hope and dread. "Choose the path to freedom," the figure urged, "or continue to dwell in darkness forever." "What do you know about freedom?" I shot back, unwilling to let fear take hold. "All I see is chaos." The figure smirked, and I felt a chill. "Chaos can lead to clarity, just like the pieces of the mirror. What do you see?" Images swirled in my mind, my past, my regrets, moments I had avoided facing. I had run from my problems, and yet here I was. "I need to find Marissa," I murmured, more to myself than to the figure. "That's your first step." The shadow beckoned, and I felt drawn to it, like moth to flame. "But you must sacrifice something in return."
What are you willing to lose? My thoughts raced. With every moment, I felt the presence of the house pressing in on me. It was a puzzle wrapped in mystery, and I needed to solve it before it swallowed me whole. "What do I give up?" I demanded. The figure stepped closer, and I felt its cold breath on my face. "Your ignorance, your fear, or perhaps a piece of your past." I hesitated. What did that mean exactly? But then I remembered Marissa's pleading face. I wanted to save her. I wanted to set both of us free. I choose to face my past, I declared, finding courage I didn't know I had. Show me the way. The shadow grinned, the darkness around it swirling like a storm. Then the journey begins. But remember, not everything is as it seems. With that, the room shifted, the walls closing in around me. The air grew thick, the light dimming. My heart raced as a new path opened before me, twisted and unpredictable. I stepped forward, taking a leap of faith into what lay ahead. But before I could see where I was going, I heard it, a soft whisper, carried on the wind. "Help me." It was Marissa's voice, faint but unmistakable. I darted towards the sound, knowing I had to hurry. Time was running out. The echoes of Marissa's voice filled the damp air, pulling me forward like an unseen force guiding my steps. I stepped through a doorway that hadn't been there moments before, my heart racing. A flickering light beckoned me ahead, illuminating a narrow passage cloaked in shadows. Each step felt heavier, as if the very ground beneath me resisted my advancement. But I didn't hesitate. I had come too far to turn back now. The whispers surged, wrapping around me like tendrils, sometimes almost audible, yet never fully forming words. I could sense them, gentle sighs of warning and urgency, thrumming with a deep, unsettling energy. I pressed on, the light ahead growing brighter, revealing fragments of memories plastered against the walls, faces and emotions caught in time, stunningly alive yet hauntingly trapped. As I burst into the next room, I was greeted by a sight that stole my breath. A luminous orb of light pulsing in the center, casting rays that danced with every flicker. Muffled cries curled around it, and I realized they were Marissa's, desperate and filled with pain, echoing through the air. Panic surged in my chest. I had to reach her. But the walls of the room seemed to shift around me, slashing between memories past and present. As images flickered, snippets of Marissa's life before this place swallowed her whole. I could see her laughing in a garden, carefree, a smile that lit up her entire being. And then, just as quickly, fury blasted through a moment of a heated argument. The air grew thick with sorrow, revealing the roots of her torment. "Marissa!" I shouted, but my voice barely cut through the onslaught. I had to focus. I had to see her, truly see her, if I was to help. I took a deep breath and reached out towards the orb, its energy wrapping around me, urging me to let go of doubt. "Face the truth," the shadowy figure from before whispered behind me. "Unlock your memories." My heart raced. I realized that I was still burdened by my own demons, my regrets, my abandonments. They interwove with Marissa's essence, and it all started to converge as I grasped the reality. She was a reflection, caught in the web of our shared darkness. As I steadied myself, I plunged deeper into the memories, feeling the boundary between us dissolve. The orb pulsed brighter, and suddenly I was no longer in the room, but surrounded by swirling visuals of our past. I could feel her essence merging with my own, reliving moments of joy and pain alike. The sharpness of choice bristled in the air. "Why did you leave me?" I could hear her soft voice, tinged with blame. It struck like a dagger, connecting with every doubt I held. "You didn't even try." "I tried." My voice cracked, the weight of shared culpability crashing down on me. But I wasn't alone in my turmoil. Her spirit hovered delicately at the center of every memory, yearning for resolution. "Help me," she whispered again. And this time I truly heard her, understood her pain, her need for connection in a world filled with shadows. In that moment, it finally dawned on me. To truly help her, I needed to face my own choices,
my own guilt for leaving everything behind. I stepped toward the brilliant light, extending a hand toward the floating orb. "I'm sorry," I breathed, memories crashing like waves, overpowering and tumultuous. The orb shimmered, and without warning, I was bombarded by visions of every choice I had made, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I could feel my heart shattering, the weight of my decisions cutting deep. "All I wanted was to escape," I gasped, feeling the enormity of it all. But deep down, it made me realize that every path had led me here, entwining me with Marissa's fate. "Choose to stay," the shadow's voice filled the room, "or choose to reclaim what is lost." In a fervor, I screamed, "I choose to face it all." Almost immediately, the orb surged forward, enveloping me in its glow. I braced myself as a rush of energy flowed through me, visions colliding and absorbing in waves of warmth and pain. The world around me exploded into light. I felt Marissa's essence wrapping around me, forming a bond stronger than fear, deeper than regret. Together, we shouted defiantly into the void, "Let us be free!" The figures around me screamed in delight or horror as the shadows began to dissolve, unraveling the years of darkness binding us. But just as quickly, a strong gust surged through the room, swirling into a whirlwind, pulling everything apart. As the room began to fade into shadow, I held on to Marissa, the connection tethering us together. "We won't be lost," I promised, and the orb brightened in affirmation. But in a blinding flash, everything vanished. The light, the whispers, the room, all swept away into nothingness. And then, silence. I opened my eyes, taking in the familiar contours of my bedroom. Daylight spilled in through the curtains, illuminating everything around me, familiar yet foreign. Was it real? Had I truly faced her and myself? There on my bedside table, the silver key lay untouched, a reminder of the choice made and paths intertwined. I moved to the window, gazing at the serene neighborhood outside. The abandoned house was gone now, just an empty lot, memories buried beneath the soil. I still think about Marissa sometimes. I can't shake the feeling that she's out there, roaming somewhere safe now, unburdened by past choices. Did I truly help her, or are we both still mired in uncertainty? I suppose I'll never truly know. What I do know is that every choice counts, in the shadows, in the light, in the uncharted territories of our hearts. And as I stepped outside, the weight that had once chained me to fear seemed just a little lighter, if only the lingering questions about the nature of those shadows remained.